Ever since Europeans arrived in North America, they had been involved in shipping goods back and forth across the Atlantic Ocean. In order to make this economic system work, the British tried to control the goods that are going to the colonies. And it was this goods coming back and forth which made a few places on eastern North America important.
Whether it's the Boston Tea Party or the Boston Massacre. Fire! We have these big historical events that we can situate our game around. All of these events that people have a rough understanding of, but they've really never experienced.
If you were to transport yourself to Boston in 1775, you would see a city vastly different from the modern city that's there today. Because Boston is really just a small town.
Boston was the center of disaffection with British rule. It's the home of Samuel Adams.
If you were a rabble-rouser like Sam Adams, and you needed something done that wasn't quite legal, you knew how to find the guys to be in the mob so that you wouldn't be caught afterwards. It was that kind of a city.
The British long thought that Boston was the center of the problem, and if they could deal with Boston, the rest of the colonies would fall in line.
Boston is the center point of the Revolution. It's where the ideas first circulated. It's where some of the most important moments happened at the beginning and spread from there.
When the British closed the port of Boston, that's when the revolution really started. They couldn't tolerate that.
We had to go back and get our historian to find us accurate maps from the era of what Boston and New York looked like. These are actual replicas of the cities.
If you're familiar with those cities, you should have that sort of eerie feeling of finding familiar sights.
We really wanted to push the animations and just make it look like it's a real living world.
As you walk through the crowd, you'll also see animals in the streets.
They would have a pig, they just clip his ear in a certain way, and they'd let him go in the street. And then he'd eat garbage, and then when it was time to eat the pig, you'd go and find your pig, and you'd slaughter it and eat your pig.
We've got a lot of new ingredients that just bring a new, fresh feeling to the gameplay inside of the cities.
We have these great new stalking zones that you're going to find throughout the cities. It's a great way for you to remain hidden from your enemies and actually be able to sneak up to them so that you could assassinate.
We've got this amazing dynamic weather system in, so we can see not just the time of day passing, but also going in and seeing the same environments, not just in the summer, but in the winter as well.
Even though it's a much more condensed area in the city, you actually have to be more careful.
There will be carts moving past, so as you're running along the buildings, escaping some snipers, you'll be able to just dive off into a hay cart that's driving past. You'll be able to jump out of that, free run quickly through the streets, through a building, and jump out the other side. See people inside freaking out as you run past through their kitchen.
Living on the frontier was extremely difficult. Not only did you have harsh winters, cold, freezing temperatures, in the summer you had heat, humidity, so it was a gamble every year that you were out on the frontier, whether you're going to make it or not.
For AC3, the biggest difference is just having access to the frontier. So this huge wilderness area that you can sort of explore at your own pace.
It's a forest, the navigation in very new environment, in a very organic environment as well.
In the frontier, you'll be able to navigate through deep snow, but also snow does impact your gameplay. It will slow down you as well as your enemies.
Once we decided that we were going to build the frontier, we realized obviously we need to populate that area. So animals became a very big deal. We have over 24 different species of animals in the game. There's an entire hunting loop that you can engage in. Whenever you're building elements such as animals, you're halfway trying to be real and halfway trying to fulfill that fantasy of what people expect.
That's the important thing about the bear. It has to be something that when you see one, you're scared in the game because it's so difficult. Like, we have wolves and you should be able to take them down, but the bear's the big one.
If you're a part of the push out into the frontier, you're dealing with animals on your doorstep every day and not many people to help you out. It's a very dangerous time. Games are built around challenge, so anytime you have a risk, whether it's the risk of animals, then this is something that allows us to build gameplay.
One of the great new features we have in the frontier is the new tree running. Connor being really fluid and being able to navigate through the trees. The frontier is really our new playground.
war at sea was truly a global war and involved not only the British, but the French and the Spanish and the Dutch.
Naval engagement of that period was all about closing the distance.
Boarding is the end game. You've got to be able to close with the enemy, get alongside, then get on board to steal his ship. You want to take that ship intact if you can, because that's where you get your prize. The prize is whatever is on that ship that you want.
When the revolution started, the British had over 130 ships in the line. Americans had none. So they had to build a navy from scratch in a hurry. Now the French helped a little bit and donated a couple of ships. But then Yankee ingenuity kicked in, and the privateer was born.
A privateer is a legalized pirate, a private vessel that operates with the authorization of the government to attack enemy commerce.
The glory of the privateer was if you caught a British ship, a cargo ship, out on the high seas and captured it, you brought it back to port, those goods were sold, and you got a share in that.
During the Revolutionary War, over 2,000 British merchantmen were captured by privateers. That's over $66 million worth of commerce. The privateers held the line and kept us alive. They bled the British white.
By the middle decades of the 18th century, the British had the most powerful navy in the world.
The Royal Navy was very well organized and was very disciplined. The privateers, on the other hand, benefited from not being as disciplined, but being well-trained and very aggressive.
It became a real problem for the British because they had to use their warships to guard their convoys.
The privateers could exercise a tremendous amount of initiative to take advantage of changes in weather, to sneak up, to use any advantage that they could.
A privateer was very much a mercenary. If you saw a ship on the distance and chased it, and it happened to be a British man of war, you were going to prison. But you were not going to be treated well. You were not thought of as an enemy soldier or sailor. You were thought of as basically a pirate.
Naval warfare was absolutely decisive to success in the American Revolution. Commerce comes by sea, at the same time invaders come by sea. You control the sea and you control the conflict.
It's a huge part of the historical period. The revolution is won pretty much at Yorktown by a blockade of ships.
You know, we can't ignore this part of the history. This is critical. This is something that we have to do. We started a whole team up just to specifically focus on the naval experience.
Naval combat has been a huge challenge. The technology of the wind, the water simulation has been a massive undertaking for the team.
Initially, we didn't even think it was feasible because it's a big moving structure.
It's a full simulation on high seas where Connor is controlling a ship, he's controlling a crew as well, so he's kind of the master and commander on a ship.
Very exciting. I mean, you are on a moving vessel that is very much part of the sea itself.
This is something that we wanted to engage in and build for the game.
That was a huge challenge that we set ourselves and actually turned out pretty good.
If you haven't played any Assassin's Creed games before, we really think this is a great point to get on board.
It is a new story, it is a new character.
This team is full of people who love making Assassin's Creed, who are delivering just an astoundingly polished and fun experience. As a creator, nothing gets better.
To be frank, it just looks great. Seeing all of this coming together at the end, it's amazing.
For new fans, really, this is about as good as it gets. It's by far the biggest and best Assassins yet.